The millionaire Navy SEALs rally after a beggar man veteran is tased outside his wife's funeral. Alex Mercer stood at the edge of the city park, his designer watch glinting under the afternoon sun, a stark contrast to the darkening skies above. The headlines didn't lie. Chaos was unfolding just a few paces away. A crowd had gathered around a small, unassuming chapel, its white facade looking so out of place amid the turbulent scene. People whispered in anxious tones. Words like disgrace and shame cut through the air like daggers. In the center of that fray, a frail figure in tattered military garb struggled as police pulled him to the ground. It was as if time slowed. Alex's heart raced. The cries of the old veteran were drowned by the crowd's disapproval. And rising chaos. He felt a familiar tightness in his chest, memories crashing around him like waves. Tom? The name slipped from his lips, barely a whisper. Tom, the man he once stood shoulder to shoulder with in the heat of battle, now reduced to this spectacle of desperation. Alex's mind flashed back to laughter shared in a trench, to brotherhood forged in the fires of conflict. How had it come to this? A politician's gala felt trivial in comparison to this moment of raw humanity, this chasm of despair stretching between them. The police officer's taser sparked, illuminating Tom's ragged expression one last time before he crumpled. A collective gasp rippled through the watchers. Alex felt a jolt of shame. How could he stand here, a millionaire, while his friend suffered? Just feet away? His heart pounded against his ribcage as he recalled the silent nights they spent sharing dreams about life after war. The promises of camaraderie fade. But what had he done? The thought clawed at him. People murmured, expressions twisted with uncertainty, some shaking their heads in disapproval. Those who once held the ideal of brotherhood now judged Tom as just another sad story. Alex's world felt flimsy, his privilege hanging by a thread, each eye on him, like an accusation. As their gazes locked, Tom's eyes spoke volumes, secrets, pain, and a longing for the bond they once shared. Alex felt the years stretch between them, a noisy chasm filled with unspoken questions. What had happened to Tom? How did they drift so far apart? The fear of intervention gnawed at him. Should he cross that invisible line of privilege? Would he be welcomed or reviled? He could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, pressing down, ready to judge him for whatever choice he made next. For a moment, he stood frozen, a statue in turmoil, caught between his luxurious life and the reality of a friend in need. Alex had always prided himself on being a protector, a warrior. But now, it felt like the biggest battle of all was within. His breath caught in his throat. Was redemption possible? Did he even deserve it? The crowd murmured, a blend of anger and pity. As the police finally secured Tom, tender moments he once took for granted seemed like distant echoes in his memory. Alex stood at a crossroads, heart pounding, about to make a choice that could reshape everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button down there to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, leave that powerful like. That helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Alex stood like a statue, heart racing, mind spinning. The moment hung heavy in the air as the crowd murmured around him, eyes shifting between him and Tom, who lay on the ground, still struggling beneath the weight of the world, and the officers. It was chaos, but it felt personal. Then, suddenly, from behind him, a voice rang out. A startling, shrill scream that tore through the tension. "Stop! Stop it right now!" The crowd turned, parting, revealing a young woman charging toward them. Her long hair whipped around her face, desperation etched deep into her features. Alex squinted through the sea of bodies, trying to make sense of what was unfolding. "Who the hell are you?" one officer barked, stepping toward her as she closed the distance. Her hands shook, but her resolve was firm. "You can't do this! He's a veteran! He served!" Suddenly, as if the universe had conspired to add weight to an already heavy moment, the woman stumbled and fell to the ground, a small, crumpled piece of paper slipping from her grip. It fluttered, landing right at Alex's feet, a bright white spot on the chaotic canvas of dirt and uniform blues. The crowd gasped, then fell silent. Without thinking, Alex crouched and picked it up. His hands trembling, he unfolded the paper, his heart dropping into his stomach as he read the words inked there. It was a letter addressed to Tom, but it was confessional, a cry for help wrapped in memories too painful to revisit. And at the bottom, in shaky handwriting, he saw the name. "Leela?" Alex whispered, eyes wide. This was Tom's daughter, the daughter he thought had ghosted her father after everything. The absence, the silence, it all made sense now. Tom hadn't been just a forgotten veteran. He was a father abandoned by those he fought for. The silence shattered, replaced by a flurry of voices. "That's not true," a man in the crowd shouted, stepping forward, outraged. "Tom's been nothing but a drunk. He's lost everything." Confusion rippled through the crowd, but Leela held her ground, meeting the eyes of each accuser with unyielding courage. "Lost everything?" she shot back, voice trembling but fierce. "You don't know him. You don't know why. His soul, it's broken. He didn't choose this." The officers hesitated, finally stepping back, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Tom lay there, looking up at the unfolding drama, his expression a mix of terror and hope. Lila was risking everything to save him, a glimmer of love in a landscape of despair. A tense moment passed. Then, the police officer who had tased Tom pulled back slightly, glancing at his partner. "What do we do?" he asked quietly. And that's when it happened. Just then, a woman from the crowd leaned in closer, eyes wide, and shouted, "He's not just a veteran. He's a war hero. You don't even know what he did for this country." More voices rose up, cries mingling with gasps. Some in support, others in judgment. It was like watching a storm gather, the energy in the air palpable. Alex felt a jolt of realization. Who was he really watching? Tom was not just the frail form on the ground. He was a testament to the memories they shared, a warrior deserving of respect. But he also saw the girl before him, and with it, threads of connection he never knew he had lost. And then a boom echoed through the park. A sudden explosion broke across the sky. People screamed as chaos erupted. A bomb had gone off somewhere. Confusion spread like wildfire. Bodies surged forward, scattering in every direction. Amid the panic, Alex caught a glimpse of Lila as she turned to look at Tom for the last time, eyes wide with fear and determination. "I'll be back, I promise," she yelled over the din. His heart sank. He could feel it. Everything had changed in an instant. This wasn't just about Tom anymore. The stakes were horrifyingly high. As the dust settled and the shouts echoed through the streets, Alex realized with a shudder that what lay ahead was far more dangerous than he had ever prepared for. A world where past secrets twisted into fate, relationships redefined by danger, and the question loomed large: would they all survive what was coming next? As the dust settled and the panic spread, time seemed to pulse with each frantic heartbeat. Alex watched Leela's determined figure vanish into the chaos, the last glimpse of hope slipping away. He felt something stir in him, a shred of urgency. But before he could move, a low rumble echoed through the park, a deep sound that vibrated in his chest. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath their feet, a harsh shaking that sent people stumbling. The crowd gasped, voices rising in confusion, fear flashing across their faces. Alex's heart raced as he struggled to regain his footing, his gaze darting to Tom on the ground. The man's eyes were wide, flickering between fear and hope. Everything happened in flashes. From the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of something big and gray, hurtling through the air like a cannonball. It wasn't just an object. It was a man, a figure already airborne. "Look out!" someone screamed. But it was too late. The man came crashing down onto the pavement just a few feet from Tom, a sickening thud breaking through the chaos. The crowd erupted, screams intermingled with cries of disbelief. Alex felt his chest tighten, a lump forming in his throat as he struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. The fallen man lay motionless, only inches away from Tom. It was the gravity of the moment that shattered the air around them. As officers rushed toward the fallen man, their attention diverted. A dizzying realization hit Alex. He knew that face. It was Sergeant Harris, Tom's old friend, the one who vanished without a word. The man who had promised to look out for Tom. What was he doing here? Before he could process the implications, a voice cut through the madness again. It was Leela. She'd turned back, eyes wide, reflecting both fear and determination. "Don't you see? This isn't just about my father. It's about all of us." She pushed through the crowd, weaving her way back toward where Tom lay. But as she ran, a shout erupted from the police. "Get back! We have it under control." The officers were struggling, pulling Harris away, examining the scene. "He's out cold. We need a medic." A wave of confusion rolled through Alex. Why had Harris jumped? Was this an accident? Or was there something deeper? He felt an urge to approach, to understand, but the crowd continued to surge, bodies bumping against one another, an ocean of chaos. And then it happened. A crackling sound filled the air, and Alex turned just as a bright flash erupted from Harris's jacket. A small device fell to the ground, rolling dangerously close to where Tom lay. Panic erupted again, whispers of bombs, of threats everywhere, as people scrambled to escape. "No!" Lila screamed, her voice rising above the din. "It can't be!" But the crowd was already dispersing, running from a danger they couldn't see, leaving behind a mix of confusion and disarray. Thousands of questions crashed into Alex's mind. Had Harris been trying to save Tom, or had he put them all in danger? As the dust settled and fear gripped the air, he caught sight of Tom once more. Hope was fading in those familiar eyes. Had Lila's fight been for nothing? Alex felt a surge of determination. He took a step forward, ready to confront whatever truth awaited him. But another tremor shook the earth, cutting through his resolve. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew was unraveling. What had just happened? What was the real story behind Harris? And was this only the beginning of something that would change everything? The answers loomed, like shadows, terrifying and out of reach. As the dust settled and fear gripped the air, Alex steadied himself, eyes locked on Tom. The old veteran lay vulnerable, longing for rescue, while the chaos of their surroundings spun wildly. The voices around him faded into a dull hum. He felt a certainty rising within him. He had to act, but just then, another tremor shook the ground. Panic swept through the crowd, people screaming and pushing toward safety. However, something in Alex began to shift. He glanced back at the fallen figure of Harris, confused. What did it all mean? Why had he jumped? "Stay back!" an officer shouted, forcing people away from the scene. A chilling realization gripped Alex. Harris had been Tom's salvation, but now his presence felt like a threat. As the crowd surged, he saw Leela's determined face pushing through, and something deep in him clicked. She needed him. "Leela!" he shouted, breaking free from the crowd. He reached her just as she was about to rush toward her father. "Wait! We need to be careful!" But she was already shaking her head, eyes wide with a mix of fear and unyielding strength. "I can't just leave him." Then came another loud cracking, the sound splitting the air as something fell from the sky. A small drone spun into view, its propeller whirring loudly, drawing everyone's attention. It hovered ominously for a moment before descending closer, lights flashing violently. The crowd gasped again, instinctively backing away. "What is happening?" someone yelled, panic weaving into their voice. Then it happened. The drone dropped. Something, an envelope. It landed heavily next to Tom. Alex's heart raced as he rushed forward, feeling the weight of the moment, as he grabbed the envelope and ripped it open. Inside were photographs. Dark, grainy images of Tom, taken at different points in his life. But it was what lay beneath that turned his blood cold. Clippings, names, and dates that thudded painfully in his heart. Accusations, corruption, treachery. It was a file exposing Tom as part of something sinister. An undercover operation gone wrong. A betrayal that had destroyed his life. "No," Lila whispered, her face pale as she turned to Tom. "You kept this from me?" In those seconds, everything shifted. The air thickened. The crowd buzzed with shock. The officers' faces twisted with disbelief. Tom didn't just lose his way. He had been a man, living under the weight of a past he had never disclosed. Lila's hands trembled, caught between rage and heartbreak. "I didn't want you to know," Tom's voice croaked, filled with anguish. "I tried to protect you." But that wasn't all. Before anyone could process what was unfolding, the drone began to retract. A laser shot out, slicing through the air and striking the ground, right in front of the officers. It sent a surge of energy that knocked Alex off his feet. He scrambled back just in time while the crowd erupted into chaos again. In that instant, the reality pivoted like a bad dream. That envelope wasn't just a warning. It seemed to threaten the entire foundation upon which their lives stood. The truth burned deeper than any accusation. Here stood a hero once revered, now painted as a villain. And Lila, who rushed ahead, found herself rooted in betrayal, caught between love and loyalty. "Tom!" she cried, the pain twisting her voice. "What have you done?" But before he could answer, another figure emerged through the panic. A civilian, dressed in black, began to approach the fallen Harris. "Get back!" the officer shouted, but the man ignored him, kneeling beside the unconscious figure. The crowd held its breath, tension crackling in the air. As the man fumbled through Harris's jacket, a glint of silver caught the light. A gun. The revelation sent a surge of dread through Alex. What was going on here? Just then, Lila turned to Alex, eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and determination. If he's involved, we can't trust anyone. We have to get out of here. Everything Alex thought he knew collapsed around him. Friendships, loyalty, the very essence of who they were. It was all slipping through his fingers like sand. What had begun as a simple moment of chaos had transformed into a labyrinth of secrets and lies, and the stakes kept rising. The truth opened up a chasm between them, a darkness that loomed larger than any explosion. Panic fueled Alex's every thought. They needed safety, clarity, and escape from this mess. "What do we do?" he asked, heart pounding. But in that moment of chaos, in the thick of uncertainty and fear, Lila stepped closer, determination etched on her face. "We find the answers, together." As the dust continued to settle, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, a revelation that would change everything. Alex felt the urgency in the air. He needed to act. "Lila!" he shouted again, as she held firm, eyes blazing with determination. "We have to get him out of here." But before he could grab her arm, another voice broke through the chaos, clearer and louder than the rest. "Stop right there." It came from the figure kneeling next to Harris, the man dressed in black. The crowd fell silent, tension thick enough to slice through. Everyone held their breath, waiting, wondering what this stranger would do next. The man looked up, eyes glinting with something. Was it madness? "You have no idea what you're dealing with. None of you." His voice dripped with contempt, and everyone instinctively took a step back. Alex's heart raced. Who was this guy? He could feel Lila's hand clutching his, her grip tight, anchoring him amid the storm. Suddenly, the man lunged forward, not at them, but at the fallen Harris. "I knew you'd drop it," he spat, yanking something out of Harris's pocket. The crowd gasped, confusion rippling through them. In an instant, a glint of metal flashed in the air. It caught the light, a badge. It was shiny, marked with symbols Alex barely recognized. The man held it up, the crowd craning their necks. This man is not just a soldier. He was a cop, a dirty cop. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and lingering, and he was involved in everything. Everything that led to Tom's downfall. "You all think you know the story, but it's so much darker." Stunned, Alex stepped back, his mind racing. Tom was trapped in a web of corruption, and now this guy was throwing his past in everyone's face. Lila's face turned pale. Betrayal sliced through her eyes like a dagger. "Tom, is this true?" she gasped, looking from the black-clad man to her father on the ground. "You never told me." Tom's expression morphed, the guilt overtaking him. "I did it to protect you. I wasn't the one who—" But he was cut off as a sound rang through the air. A loud crack, followed by a flash of light. A second drone swooped in, almost like a hawk returning to roost. It hovered with a menacing presence, and just as quickly, it dropped. Something, a small object, that landed at their feet. Alex's breath caught in his throat as he recognized it. A flash drive. The guy in black picked it up, then turned to Tom, a twisted smile stretching across his face. "Now it's time to see the truth, old friend." He plugged the flash drive into a small device he pulled from his pocket. A screen flickered to life, images projected into the air for everyone to see. Gasps filled the space as the crowd watched a montage of events unfold. Dark dealings, money exchanged, faces blurred but recognizable. A voice echoed harshly. Details that cut through the tension like glass. Operation Midnight Striker, led by this man, Harris, and your beloved Tom. The crowd buzzed with disbelief, shouts of anger mixing with fear. Accusations flew through the air, a storm of judgment crashing down. Everything Alex thought he knew collapsed. Tom wasn't just a victim. He was knee-deep in something treacherous. Alex shot a glance at Leela, heart racing. Her face was filled with heartbreak, disbelief. And then, chaos erupted. Before anyone could react, the ground shook again. The second drone emitted a piercing sound. It released a cloud, thick and choking. People screamed, taking off in all directions while Alex and Leela stumbled together. "Tom!" Leela cried desperately. Her world was unraveling right in front of her. But the air was thickening, panic rising as the crowd scattered, fighting for breath. Alex felt disoriented, overwhelmed. Just moments ago, it had been about rescuing Tom. And now everything was a cosmic mess of secrets and lies. As they rushed away from the chaos, he threw a final glance back. The man in black was animated, eyes wild with triumph, and Tom struggled to rise, the weight of his past crashing down around him. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something darker, something more dangerous. "Alex, we can't leave him," Leela's voice pierced through the storm surrounding them. "We have to find a way to help him." But in that moment, Alex wasn't sure who to trust. The faces in the crowd morphed into shadows, their judgment burning into his mind. He and Leela faced a new reality, one centered not on redemption, but on betrayal. What had they walked into? And what would it mean for Tom, Leela, for him? This was just a glimpse of a truth he wasn't ready to face. With uncertainty clawing at him, he grabbed Leela's arm, desperation fueling him. "We need to leave, to figure this out, now." But as they turned to escape, Alex felt the weight of something pressing down on him. The knowledge that every step forward might bring them closer to peril. What other secrets lay hidden in the dark? Would they survive to unveil them? Alex felt the urgency gnawing at him, heart pounding. "Leela!" he shouted again, trying to pull her back as the chaos still swirled around them. "We have to get him out of here." But before he could grab her arm, the tension thickened even more, suffocating. A shadow loomed just beside them. The man in black turned, his grin growing wide, and lifted his free hand as if to silence the chaos around him. "You still don't get it, do you?" he mocked, his voice dripping with disdain. "This isn't just about Tom anymore. This is much bigger." "What are you talking about?" Leela shouted. But before she could press on, something unexpected happened. The air shimmered, a distortion that caught Alex's eye. It felt like the ground itself was shifting beneath him, and suddenly, an explosion of color burst forth. A beam of light shot up into the sky from the fallen drone, bathing everything in a supernatural glow. The crowd froze, eyes wide with horror and wonder, transfixed by the surreal sight. Alex turned his head in disbelief, but the spectacle only lasted a second before darkness pooled in. A low drone buzzed, drowning out all other noise, but boiling under the surface was something else, something dark, something forgotten. "Watch!" the man screamed, his laughter echoing. "This is how we bring the real story to light." Before Alex could react, the ground erupted beneath them like it had been set off by a bomb. He shielded Leela with his body, feeling the heat radiate as debris scattered in the air. People screamed, but as the dust cleared, they weren't just fleeing out of fear. Their eyes were riveted on the screen materializing from the dust. A giant, holographic display projecting the chaos around them. But the images were wrong. Twisted, they showed Tom as a villain, manipulating the very system he fought for, caught in a web of crime and corruption. Alex felt. His chest tightened painfully. No, this can't be right, he gasped, looking at Lila, who stood frozen, jaw slack, her world crashing down before her eyes. It has to be some kind of trick. It's real, the man in black intoned, like he thrived on the despair unfurling before him. Tom's been a pawn all along, a sacrificial piece to hide bigger players. A piercing scream cut through the air. It came from a woman, tall with striking features, emerging from the crowd. Enough! You don't know anything about him! Everyone turned, a gasp vibrating through the crowd. Alex blinked in disbelief. It was Angela, Harris's partner, but with her gaze now more burning than ever. You think you have it all figured out? She stepped forward, ignoring the chaos around her. You don't know what has been happening behind the scenes. Then tell us, someone shouted, clutching their head like they were being crushed under pressure. What is this madness? Suddenly, the light flickered again, and images of Harris appeared. Dark dealings, money exchanged, but interlaced with something darker. It shifted to a meeting room. Faces Alex recognized as politicians and mobsters, all conspiring against their own. The room twisted, revealing the truth. Harris had been spying for someone bigger. Now their secrets threatened to unravel. No, Lila choked out. This can't be. Dad, she whispered. Then her voice broke. All those years she thought he was serving, protecting, and now he was part of something insidious. The pieces began to fall into place, crashing down into Alex's mind like broken glass. Who could they trust? As the camera focused back on Tom, Alex's heart raced. Was Tom complicit? An agent lying all this time? Or was it a different game altogether? But then, just as the truth seemed to settle, a burst of sharp air filled the space again, twisting the moment. Another explosion echoed from a nearby building, collapsing nearby. The space erupted into a chaos like nothing he had ever witnessed. Dust swirling, screams resonating, and blurred shadows darting everywhere around them. Lila's face twisted in horror and desperation. We need to leave, now! Go, Alex yelled, eyes still glued to Tom, who was struggling to stand. Image flickering, painfully caught between two extremes. But, in the buzz of chaos, something felt off. Something crucial still lingered in the air. A darkness that hung tightly around them, ready to burst. Alex felt that tightness in his chest expand. He turned again, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Lila, we can't leave him to face this alone, he shouted, torn between loyalty and despair. But the ground trembled beneath them, and in that clamor, an unsettling truth loomed larger than before. Beneath the layers of turmoil, deeper connections twisted like a coiling serpent. The light dimmed again, and the sudden realization gripped him. Everything he thought he knew shifted. With the world collapsing around them, Alex stood on shaky ground. What had he gotten himself into? And who among them was truly the enemy? With uncertainty flooding in, he realized no one was safe, and anything could happen next. Alex felt the urgency gnawing at him, heart pounding. Lila, he shouted again as she held firm, eyes blazing with determination. We have to get him out of here. But before he could grab her arm, the tension thickened even more, suffocating. A shadow loomed just beside them. The man in black turned, his grin growing wide, and lifted his free hand as if to silence the chaos around him. "You still don't get it, do you?" he mocked, his voice dripping with disdain. "This isn't just about Tom anymore. This is much bigger." "What are you talking about?" Leela shouted. But before she could press on, something unexpected happened. The air shimmered, a distortion that caught Alex's eye. It felt like the ground itself was shifting beneath him, and suddenly, an explosion of color burst forth. A beam of light shot up into the sky from the fallen drone, bathing everything in a supernatural glow. The crowd froze, eyes wide with horror and wonder, transfixed by the surreal sight. Alex turned his head in disbelief, but the spectacle only lasted a second before darkness pooled in. A low drone buzzed, drowning out all other noise. But boiling under the surface was something else, something dark, something forgotten. "Watch!" the man screamed, his laughter echoing. "This is how we bring the real story to light." Before Alex could react, the ground erupted beneath them, like it had been set off by a bomb. He shielded Leela with his body, feeling the heat radiate as debris scattered in the air. People screamed, but as the dust cleared, they weren't just fleeing out of fear. Their eyes were riveted on the screen materializing from the dust, a giant holographic display projecting the chaos around them. But the images were wrong. Twisted. They showed Tom as a villain, manipulating the very system he fought for, caught in a web of crime and corruption. Alex felt his chest tighten painfully. No, this can't be right," he gasped, looking at Lila, who stood frozen, jaw slack, her world crashing down before her eyes. "It has to be some kind of trick." "It's real," the man in black intoned, like he thrived on the despair unfurling before him. "Tom's been a pawn all along, a sacrificial piece to hide bigger players." A piercing scream cut through the air. It came from a woman, tall, with striking features, emerging from the crowd. "Enough! You don't know anything about him!" Everyone turned, a gasp vibrating through the crowd. Alex blinked in disbelief. It was Angela, Harris's partner, but with her gaze now more burning than ever. "You think you have it all figured out?" She stepped forward, ignoring the chaos around her. "You don't know what has been happening behind the scenes." "Then tell us!" someone shouted, clutching their head like they were being crushed under pressure. "What is this madness?" Suddenly the light flickered again, and images of Harris appeared. Dark dealings, money exchanged, but interlaced with something darker. It shifted to a meeting room, faces Alex recognized as politicians and mobsters, all conspiring against their own. The room twisted, revealing the truth. Harris had been spying for someone bigger. Now their secrets threatened to unravel. "No," Leela choked out. "This can't be." "Dad?" she whispered. Then her voice broke. All those years she thought he was serving, protecting, and now he was part of something insidious. The pieces began to fall into place, crashing down into Alex's mind like broken glass. Who could they trust? As the camera focused back on Tom, Alex's heart raced. Was Tom complicit? An agent lying all this time? Or was it a different game altogether? But then, just as the truth seemed to settle, a burst of sharp air filled the space again, twisting the moment. Another explosion echoed from a nearby building, collapsing nearby. The space erupted into a chaos like nothing he had ever witnessed. Dust swirling, screams resonating, and blurred shadows darting everywhere around them. Leela's face twisted in horror and desperation. "We need to leave, now! Go!" Alex yelled, eyes still glued to Tom, who was struggling to stand, image flickering, painfully caught between two extremes. But in the buzz of chaos, something felt off. something crucial still lingered in the air. A darkness that hung tightly around them, ready to burst. Alex felt that tightness in his chest expand. He turned again, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Leela, we can't leave him to face this alone," he shouted, torn between loyalty and despair. But the ground trembled beneath them, and in that clamor, an unsettling truth loomed larger than before. Beneath the layers of turmoil, deeper connections twisted like a coiling serpent. Then, without warning, everything changed. A sharp crack echoed from above. A helicopter hovered low, black blades slicing violently through the air. It swung around, spotlight illuminating the area. The crowd panicked anew, but from the helicopter, a voice boomed, resonating through the chaos. "You're all part of this now. You've touched what was never meant for you." A figure leaped from the chopper, an armored form descending swiftly. The sight left Alex breathless. It was Officer Brenner, the one who had been overseeing the entire investigation, a very man who had been tracking Tom's life for answers the entire time. Landing gracefully, he drew his weapon, eyes scanning the scene like a hawk. "You think you understand?" he barked, looking directly at Lila. Then to Alex. "This is bigger than Tom. It's bigger than all of us." Just then, a concealed panel on the helicopter opened, and the crowd gasped. Out rolled a set of file cabinets, each one coded with names Alex recognized but didn't understand. The names of soldiers lost, their stories buried. "Your stories," Brenner continued, voice low but commanding, "are all linked to a cover-up. A web of lies that we've been trying to expose." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "And you're in the middle of it now." The reality crashed over Alex like an avalanche. This was a conspiracy that reached far beyond just Tom. With that understanding came a horrifying clarity. It wasn't over. It had just begun. "What do you mean?" Leela's voice trembled as she processed the chaos. But before Brenner could explain, a fire alarm blared from the building, drowning out his words. Thick, black smoke billowed into the sky, darkening the sun. With heart racing, Alex stared at the world crumbling around them. Relationships felt like glass, fracturing beneath the weight of their truths. What had they stepped into? Would they even survive to see the next chapter? In that moment, with the ground shaking beneath them and danger looming everywhere, it became clear. They were on a precipice. One wrong move could plunge them into darkness. The ground shook again, and fear gripped Alex's heart like a vice. The crowd was a flurry of screams and chaos, but he could only focus on Leela. She stood there, shocked, her eyes searching his face for answers he didn't have. "We can't leave him, Alex," she cried, a tremor in her voice. But just as he was about to gather her to flee, disaster struck. The hovering helicopter suddenly tilted, blades roaring deafeningly. With a sickening twist, it descended rapidly, spiraling out of control. Alex watched in horror as it crashed a few feet away, sending up a cloud of dust that blotted out the sun. His world spun with it, and his mind raced as he grabbed Leela's arm tightly, pulling her away from the chaos. But in that moment of frantic movement, something unexpected emerged from the wreckage. A figure stumbled out, covered in dust and smoke. It was Harris, but he wasn't alone. He dragged someone behind him, someone bound and barely conscious. The shape of the person slowly came into focus, and Alex's heart dropped. "No, it can't be," Leela gasped. It was Tom. Harris pushed him forward, shoving Tom to the ground like he was trash. "You wanted the truth?" Harris screamed over the noise. "Here it is. Your hero was never the man you thought." Confusion flooded Alex's mind. "What the hell, Harris?" He stepped forward, heart racing. This was not how it was supposed to unfold. The man in black loomed behind him, smirking, as if this was exactly what he wanted. "Listen!" Harris shouted, taking a step toward them. "This whole thing? It's a game, and Tom was caught in it. He's been working both sides." The words struck like a bolt of lightning, paralyzing Alex. "No, you're lying," Leela shot back, her voice strong, but her body trembling. "My father wouldn't do that." "Oh, but he did," Harris replied, stepping closer, the confidence radiating off him. He played both sides for years. Money, power, he thought it was all safe. Tom lay there, disheveled and broken, eyes darting between Lila's face and Harris's. "No, please, Lila, listen to me," he choked out. "It's not what it seems." But the crowd murmured, the judgmental glances piercing through the air. People whispered and shot accusing looks at Tom, shaking their heads in disbelief. Alex felt the weight in the atmosphere, the contempt closing in like a cage. The man in black laughed, his voice slicing through the tension. "You think you know everything? You're all part of this now. Welcome to the real world, where heroes become villains just like that." He snapped his fingers. Then, without warning, he revealed a small device in his hand, a remote. The ground beneath them trembled again, but this time it was different. A series of explosions rippled through the park, echoing like thunder. Fire flashed up from the edges like a serpent awakening. People screamed, panic erupting once more. Bodies surged, trying to break free of the chaos. Alex grasped Leela's wrist tighter, pulling her close, but the heat of the flames licked at their heels, threatening to consume them. "Tom!" Leela screamed, as their eyes locked, pure desperation reflecting in her gaze. "Tell me it's not true!" "I did it to protect you," Tom yelled back, choking on his words. "I was trying to expose the corruption from inside. I thought if I could—" But the man in black interrupted. "Save it. Your lies won't save you now. This is only the beginning." With a press of the button, the chaos escalated further. As the fire raged, everything twisted. Relationships shattered. Identities collapsed. What had once been a fight for justice transformed into a brutal game of survival. In the swirling flames, Alex felt everything slip away. The trust, the certainty, the future they all fought for. The world spun, darkness creeping in on all sides. And then, just before it reached its peak, something exploded in his chest. A revelation that paralyzed him. Tom wasn't just a victim. He was the architect of this betrayal. The horror settled in like icy fingers, pinching at Alex's heart. Was he wrong all along? Had he believed in a lie? And as they fought for their lives amid the smoke and chaos, one question echoed. Louder and louder in his mind. Could they escape this nightmare? Would anything be left once the dust settled? The ground shook again, and Alex's heart raced. "Leela!" he shouted, pulling her closer as the chaos outside took on a new edge. The holographic images flickered like dying flames, and the air filled with smoke and fear. Tom lay crumpled on the ground, shadows dancing around him, his past crashing over the present. "Get up! We have to go!" Alex urged, eyes darting to Harris, who stood there with a smug grin. But then, all eyes turned back to Tom, who strained to push himself off the ground. He looked vulnerable, desperate. "I wasn't lying, Leela." Tom's voice was hoarse, barely scraping through the din. "I was trying to protect you." But no one was listening anymore. Everyone's focus stayed on the man in black, who was reveling in the chaos he orchestrated. As Alex began to turn, to guide Leela away, something unexpected happened. The ground shook again, a tremor that sent waves of panic through the crowd. And then there was a piercing scream. "Look out!" someone shouted, and Alex spun just in time to see a shadow darting through the smoke. A figure, tied up and struggling, became visible in the aftermath of the chaos. "Tom!" Leela cried, the name tearing from her as her father fell back, overwhelmed. But the figure emerged from the smoke, and Alex's breath caught in his throat. It was another man, rough, fierce, but he held the familiar shape of someone they both recognized. "What are you doing here?" he roared, eyes wild with fear and fury. "Harris," the man in black sneered, stepping forward as if to confront him. "Thought you'd drop by and save the day?" The crowd fell into a hush, confusion swirling like the smoke around them. Leela froze, eyes flitting between her father and this newcomer. Who is he? But before anyone could answer, the world exploded. The man, who Harris had called Harris, drew a weapon. A flash of metal caught the light, and suddenly, everything moved in slow motion. "I'll end this," he shouted, voice filled with anguish. In one fluid motion, the weapon fired. A deafening bang. "No!" Alex yelled, but the sound of it was swallowed by chaos. The bullet struck Tom, the old veteran. Time paused. As the world shifted, Lila screamed, a raw, heart-wrenching sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of the ground. "Dad!" she cried, rushing toward him as Tom staggered backward, clutching his chest, eyes wide with shock. But there was something else, something gnawing at Alex's gut. The look in Tom's eyes was fleeting, suddenly transforming into recognition as realization dawned. He gasped, You were supposed to protect me!" Then everything exploded in a stunning revelation. The man was not just any soldier. He was a covert agent, one who had forged ties with Tom, but there had always been a deeper plan. "Tom sent me," he spat, his voice filled with regret. "You're not innocent in this, you fool." Lila fell to her knees beside her father as he collapsed. Tears streamed down her face, every sob ripping through Alex's heart. No, this can't be happening." The crowd surged again, caught in a web of fear and disbelief. Would they find the truth here? Or had they just opened a door to darkness? As Tom's breath grew shallow, something shifted inside Alex. Was everything he believed about friendship and loyalty a lie? Just then, the man in black laughed, a sinister sound echoing through the chaos. This tragedy was never just Tom's. It's all of you, caught in the ripples of a far greater game. Alex's mind raced, thoughts spiraling out of control. He gripped Leela's hand tighter. Something was terribly wrong. And as Tom's life hung in the balance, they were all left to face the aftermath. Would they uncover the truth? Could any of them survive this twisted nightmare? Doubts clawed at Alex as he looked into Lila's shattered eyes. Everything hinged on the choices they'd make in this storm of secrets. As the chaos unfolded, the danger had only begun to reveal its true face, and uncertainty loomed over them in shadows thicker than smoke. Alex's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. Tom lay on the ground, blood pooling around him, his breath shallow. Lila knelt beside her father. Desperation etched into her features. "Dad, please!" she sobbed, cradling his head, shaking him lightly. "Hold on!" But Tom's eyes flickered. "Lila, I'm sorry." The words escaped him like a whisper on the wind, frail and fading. A chasm of pain opened between them, a distance that years couldn't mend. "No, you have to stay with me," Leela cried, her voice breaking. The crowd around them was enveloped in an eerie silence, collective breaths held, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Harris gaped, stunned by his own actions, the gun still poised in his hand. I didn't mean to. Save it, Alex snapped, rushing toward Tom and Leela, every bit of his being ready to fight for them. We need to focus on him. He could feel the heat of the flames creeping closer, the urgency prickling at his skin. But the man in black just stood there, eyes gleaming with a twisted sense of satisfaction. You think saving him will change anything? The web is already spun. Angela stepped forward, eyes blazing with clarity. This isn't about you anymore. It's about him. She pointed at Tom, whose breathing had grown more ragged. Alex's chest tightened. Leela, we need to get him out of here. He crushed his fear under the weight of her panic-stricken face and took a deep breath. With trembling hands, Leela pulled at Tom, urging him to sit up, but his strength was waning. I didn't know how to tell you, Tom gasped, eyes darting toward Alex, pleading. I was trying to protect you all. Protect us? By getting involved in criminal activity? Leela shot back, anguish twisting her features. You could have told me. Listen to him, Alex shouted over the rising tensions, squeezing Leela's shoulder like an anchor. He needs us now more than ever. Harris suddenly dropped the gun, his eyes wild. You don't understand. They're coming for all of us. He glanced frantically around, clearly losing control. The crowd murmured, expressions caught between shock and fear. What do you mean? Someone finally asked, their voice barely a whisper. Those in power don't forgive, Harris shouted, stepping back, desperation dripping from his words. They'll erase anyone who knows the truth. Suddenly, a flash of yellow filled the sky. A helicopter whirled overhead again, spotlight beaming down. Get down, someone cried, voices blending with the whir of blades. As if on cue, the man in black bolted toward the chaos. Run! Get away from here! But Alex held Leela firm, her eyes glued to Tom, simultaneously shaking with fear and determination. Help him, she commanded. Together, now, Alex murmured, his voice low but filled with fire. With all his strength, he and Leela lifted Tom, carrying him out from beneath the chaos and into the flickering light beyond. The world raged behind them, but they moved forward, a unit forged in crisis. Around them, the crowd began to scatter, fear taking over. As they made their way through the chaos, distress and pain ebbed into their collective resolve. A group of first responders rushed in, pushing the panicking crowd back, lights dancing over the scene like stars in a storm. Leela glanced back at her father's frail form, the weight of everything crashing down. We'll figure it out, Dad, I swear. Her voice tremored, a promise woven with hope. With adrenaline coursing through him, Alex guided them toward safety. He knew they weren't alone in this fight. The truth was powerful, and even broken hearts could fight back. As they stumbled into the safety of the paramedics, Alex stole a glance at Leela. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together, he vowed, heart pounding with the weight of danger lifting slowly. And as the sirens blared into the night, illuminating the darkened sky, a sense of finality swept through the air. It wasn't just the end of one chapter, but the thrilling onset of another, one filled with uncertainty, yet brimming with hope. But just as the paramedics took charge, a figure emerged from the shadows. Harris, now looking even more frantic. It's not over! You have to believe me! He shouted, drawing uncertain gazes from those around. And in that moment, as the chaos began to settle, a new wave of fear washed over Alex. What other secrets lay hidden? Who could they trust now? The story felt far from finished. this was only the beginning. As the crowd disperses, whispers lingered in the air, hints of danger still lurking in the shadows. Now let's talk about what comes next. You must subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss any of our exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how this all wraps up. Don't wait one more second to share. Keep watching, click on the next exciting story at the end of this video, and continue the thrill with us.